everybody. Welcome into Talking Fitchburg on this Thursday, December 16, 2021. Jeremy Crosby here. We got a jam-packed show for you coming up. We got to get right to it. We'll be talking about mobile app payments and make sure you use those correctly and safely. And we check in with Hy-Vee's dietitian, Andrea Miller, for her last segment. Yeah, very bummed on that, but we're talking cranberries here coming up. Let's get to the headlines, and we start with the weather recap. Just looking back at the storm, several tree branches were down, damaged to street signs, and fire department responded to about 5 calls, including mutual aid calls here in the city of Fitchburg. City is doing brush collection because of the storm. If you have down limbs or branches from the wind on Wednesday evening storm and need to be picked up, please place them at the curbside following brush pickup rules. That's no longer than 6 inches in diameter and no longer than 5 inches with cut ends towards the street. You can call us at 270-4200 to schedule them, our crews, to pick them up. All right, that does it for our headlines. Coming up next, we open up our digest segment. We'll be talking about those payment apps next right here on TF.
Hey, boss. Okay.
Said I'm fine.
Me to bed, see you in the morning with the frosted Superman, but it wasn't on it, and we lost it. In my head, in my head, in my head. Where you at? Underlay in my head.
Hey, son.
Hey, Bob.
You know you can talk to me.
Yeah.
We're all just trying to keep things running for those who rely on us.
Ready?
That's why we don't have time to be sick with the flu. And especially this year, no one has time to get sick. Get a flu shot for yourself and those around you too.
Well, welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. Joining me from the Department of Ag, Trade, Consumer Protection, we've got Laura. She's back and she's ready to protect you from the latest mobile apps scam. You got it all. I mean, you've got it all. And welcome back to the show. How are you doing first? Let's check in.
I'm good. I'm enjoying the holiday season. I got a kid home from college and another on the way. So I'm excited to have my birdies back in the nest.
Absolutely. Great time of year. Yeah. That's about the best thing is, I'm human with setting up the stockings and stuff. You can see that from the background. But today we're going to talk about mobile app payments. And we're going to talk about a couple different things in the mobile world. Certainly a lot easier ways of shopping around and using apps instead of going to the websites. Basically shortcuts to websites, more or less. But spotting scams against these things are super important. And you're going to give us kind of a good overview today of a couple of different scams out there. But first and foremost, mobile payment apps. What would you tell us about those, and why should we even be talking about it?
Well, so mobile payment apps started out as a sort of a peer-to-peer payment form. So they were envisioned as paying your friends and your family and people that you knew. They have quickly turned into more than that, and methods of payment for concert tickets, sporting events, purchasing something in a social marketplace. And they're very convenient because it's a quick way in which you can move money through your phone, but they're very difficult to provide the kind of protection you need if the person on the other end of that transaction is a scammer. So one of the concerns that we're raising for folks is if you use a mobile payment app, when you're engaging with the seller that you can't verify, there's very little you can do to get that money back. People can set up through a fake name and Google Voice a totally untraceable mobile app platform or mobile app profile. And once that happens, if you pay that person through that mobile app, there's really nothing you can do about getting that money back because it's untraceable, those individuals. So our suggestion is if you're using the mobile app to pay a seller, verify that seller. Make sure that it's a seller that you know they exist, that they have perhaps a brick and mortar somewhere. You've done your homework to figure out whether or not this is a legitimate seller. If you can't verify that seller, you might consider not working with them at all. But if you do, use a form of payment like a credit card that has some fraud protection attached to it. The mobile payment apps make that a little bit more difficult and are not necessarily as secure as your basic credit card.
Yeah, and if you think you've been scammed out, where do you start? Like, or you've been scammed out, you've been scammed. I know, scammed out. There's a new word for the year. Jeepers. What do you do if you have lost that money? How would you start the process of getting it back if you can?
Well, so these mobile payment apps are backed by either a debit card or a credit card. If you have it attached to your banking account, that's actually even more problematic, obviously, because the money is gone. If you have it attached to a credit card, you can then work with your credit card company and try to address it that way, because they have some fraud protection. If you've purchased something and you didn't get it, your credit card fraud protection often can be a good resolution to that. But if you're attaching it to your bank account, that then becomes much more complicated and not very safe. So again, our suggestion is know who the person is that you're working with. If you're going to use one of these apps, don't back the app with a bank with direct access to your bank account, but use a credit card instead. And if you can't verify the seller, go ahead and think about not working with them or not using a payment app at all.
Yeah, it'd be a lot easier and safer that way, certainly. And I like saying do your homework is super important on these to make sure it's legit. You had another a scam to talk about, sort of in the same lines from Google. Is that correct?
That's right. So social marketplace scams, and they can often be partnered with this mobile app payment form. But in any event, social marketplace, again, it started as a lot of these social marketplace places where you can purchase things on social media started with this idea that you're purchasing something from someone in your neighborhood or someone that, in your geographical region. Well, they've quickly become much broader, and you can buy things from all over the country and perhaps the world. The reality is those sellers oftentimes are sellers that you don't know, and they can be very difficult to verify. We are getting a lot of complaints about fake sellers or just really shoddy merchandise. So, you're shopping and you're looking for that great jersey for your nephew or your grandson, and it's super expensive, and lo and behold, on your social marketplace it pops up as at a dream price, and they can get it to you tomorrow. Well, guess what? That's probably a scam, and they probably don't have the jersey that you're looking for, or they have some sort of counterfeit jersey that's not as worth what you're looking for. And so those are the complaints we're getting, and people need to be careful for that. So again, do your homework. Research the vendor. If it's a lot of money that you're spending, we think you should think twice before doing that kind of transaction with the vendor that you cannot verify. If it's too good to be true, it probably is, and you shouldn't engage. Absolutely. One of the other things that has come out of this, and scammers are always one step ahead, it seems. So I keep talking about authenticate the vendor, figure out who the vendor is. Well, one way you can do that is through, or one way people suggest you can do it is through this dual factor authentication. Really great to have dual factor authentication, but let me tell you a scam that is perked up that piggybacks on dual factor authentication. The scam works like this. There is a consumer there, you're the seller in this instance, and someone online calls you and purports to want to buy what you're selling. And they say, but we want to authenticate you're real. So they use some information from you to set up a Google Voice account, and they do the authentication of that Google Voice account by getting your phone number and having the code texted to your cell phone, and then they ask you for that code, and you give them that code, and then they have set up a Google Voice phone number in your name. What that means is they're using your name and that Google Voice number to purport to commit further scams against other people. So what should you do to avoid that? Never, ever, ever give out those authentication codes to anybody. When you see an authentication code, it says, don't share this with anybody, and
Right.
read that and believe it and follow those rules. Certainly don't share these things with people you don't know or you just met or online and you're trying to buy something. I mean, that's just the takeaway altogether. The scammers are getting more and more sophisticated. They're going to build your trust. They're going to tell you, oh, here's why you should trust me. And as human beings, we want to trust people. But the reality is these scams all sort of come down to the same kind of formula. They're going to try to steal your money or your identity. And they're going to do it by getting personal identifying information from you, like this code, or they're going to get your money by a gift card. So, you might be having these really nice conversations with somebody, and then they do that red flag. Oh, well, can you send me that money in a gift card? Or, oh, can I have that authentication code that everyone tells you should not share? Don't share it. Hang up the phone, disconnect that email exchange, and ignore those kinds of solicitations.
It just takes the fun out of the holiday season, that these scammers are something else, and people want to do the right thing, but can get taken advantage of in so many different ways. So, I encourage you still to, use the technology that's out there, but you got to do your homework. And the things that you shared today, Laura, I think are great starting points to again, spot those red flags and stop from being scammed. And it's good to note that you're getting reports. I think that's always the nice part when we catch up with you, is this is happening right here in our backyard, folks. So it's not that she's telling you that we be worried. You need to be worried about this, but knowing it's actively happening, I think is always a plus. So appreciate the information. If people want to learn more about this or any scams, or what you folks can do to help at DATCP, how can they find you?
So first, Jeremy, we are so happy to always be here, so they can find information about us here. So thanks for having us on all the time. But they can call us at 1-800-422-7128 and talk to our experts on our hotline. They can visit our website at datcp.wi.gov, and they can email us at dadcaphotline@wisconsin.gov.
Well, thank you and your staff for helping us out all year long. We look forward to continuing into next year. And hopefully, if we could just stop one scam or one person from losing their identity, money, something, then I know we've done something right. But we'll continue to educate day in and day out, darn it.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy.
You bet. Happy holidays, and we'll check in with you next year. Take a quick break. More to come. You're watching Talking Fitchburg.
You could be spreading the coronavirus without realizing you have it. So follow guidance from authorities where you live and do your part. It's important to limit in-person interaction with anyone outside of your immediate household, but phone and video chat are safe ways to connect. It's also important to limit any social gathering. This advice applies to people of any age, including teens and younger adults. Visit coronavirus.gov for the latest information.
After you joined our family, it was like, I really do feel complete now.
Welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. Joining us from Hy-Vee all across Madison area, because she goes to all of them. It's Andrea Miller, our dietitian. And I say ours because she's helped us out for a long time. And as anything goes, so do you. You're leaving us. It's not fair, but I'm very excited for you, Andrea. Welcome back to the show. Maybe we should let you say hi first, but then we can talk about how sad we're going to miss you having you on our show.
Hello, and thank you. I will miss you guys as well.
You've been such great help, and we've done so many fun segments. It's going to be hard to replace you on this, but we just can't thank you enough for all your help, and we'll save that for the end here on thanking you. I said I wouldn't tear up, so we'll keep it going. In today's segment, before we get to the waterworks, we'll talk about cranberries, and a perfect time of year. We just came out of Thanksgiving and heading in the holiday season. It's the best time. Wisconsin is the cranberry capital of the world, so we got that going for us. But let's learn a little bit about the cranberry, because you could probably work this into your diet a little bit. I'm just suspecting, because Andrew wouldn't bring it here if we couldn't find a good way for it. But tell us a little bit about the cranberry itself.
Yes, so it's a gorgeous fruit to start, and our state fruit, which is even better. But there's a lot of different characteristics and nutritional benefits of cranberries. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that today, and things to consider when you're incorporating cranberries into your recipes or when you eat them. So first, they're the most related to the blueberry. So if you can kind of picture how a blueberry, like the texture and kind of woodiness a little bit to a blueberry, that's what cranberries are most like. They are even a little bit more tart, and kind of, some people might describe them as crisp or not sweet, depending on their taste buds. But they have a very crisp, almost woody texture to them. So that's something to consider. And then of course, their bright color. So it's very attractive to include cranberries into dishes, but we also get a lot of nutritional benefits from that bright color. So that's what we can talk a little bit more about.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're right on the texture. It's definitely, blueberry pops per se. This doesn't necessarily pop, but and then the flavor too. It really depends how you prep it, and we'll get to that. But I love like the dried cranberries. Those are my favorite.
Yeah. So they're certainly not juicy. You wouldn't describe them as juicy like a grape. But as far as nutritional benefits, a lot of it is coming from that bright color. A lot of the nutritional benefits come from the antioxidants we get from cranberries. So we've talked about antioxidants before. They're in a lot of different fruits and vegetables. Their main role is to prevent damaged cells from being vulnerable. So our cells get broken down on a minute by minute daily basis. Okay. Antioxidants kind of fill themselves in, they give themselves up to replenish, if you think of it that way, that damaged cell. So it's not vulnerable to diseases like heart disease, diabetes. Those are kind of the serious ones, but also wrinkles. Wrinkles are a result of oxidation or cells breaking down. So antioxidants kind of fill themselves in, give themselves up to keep that cell nice and whole and healthy.
That's interesting. And there's other things that for prevention and protection that I see here, and ulcers. That's interesting.
Yeah. So they're not really used as treatment, of course. It's a lot of things. So preventing ulcers is one. The good health of our urinary tract. You hear them kind of connected with urinary tract infections, but really they help prevent and kind of keep a nice, that system running smoothly. And then they have an antimicrobial effect, which sounds kind of interesting, but what that basically means is they make a very inhospitable environment for things like bacteria and viruses. That's what antimicrobial means in terms of food. And so they make it so viruses and bacteria don't want to hang out there, which is a good thing. And so they have kind of that effect on our system as well.
All right. Well, we've kind of got the benefits, if you will, of it. I think the next piece is you're thinking of the eating part of this and healthy snack or something. But cranberries and sugar, where does that fall?
Yeah, great question. So you are going to see sugar connected a lot with cranberries, and even professionally speaking, I think that's okay. Having sugar added to cranberries doesn't take away the nutritional benefits that we get from the cranberries, if you think of it that way. Okay. That's like saying if you add salt to broccoli, that doesn't take away the nutritional benefits from broccoli just by adding some salt, right? So of course you want to consider the added sugar and what that means to you, but know that we don't usually drink straight cranberry juice, or, we're not going to pop cranberries like we would grapes. Okay. So they will make the cranberries more palatable. And so the other thing to note is that in some cases, adding sugar to cranberries even keeps them at the same level as other fruits naturally. So
Interesting.
Something to kind of take into consideration. It's not necessarily making them higher in sugar or carbohydrates than other fruit, even with added sugar. It's because their baseline sugar level is so low.
Well, that makes it guilty free. No, I'm just kidding. All I just heard is that's a green light to eat more cranberries, no matter what form or shape they take in. So as we're looking and buying for cranberries, I can't honestly tell you, Andrew, that I've ever bought a fresh cranberry before. So this is totally out there. So I'm kind of excited to learn a little bit about this, because I am looking for cooking the ultimate meal this year. So tell us about looking and finding them, the season, that sort of thing.
Right. Yes. Well, this is the year, I think, for you, the year of the fresh cranberry for you. So
I'm wearing red. I mean, come on, we're ready.
We're right in peak season for purchasing them fresh in the produce department. So you'll find them in the produce department in nice little mesh bag. That's kind of our local ones, come in mesh bags. You'll also see some ocean spray varieties that come in a plastic bag with air holes in them. You want to look for cranberries. They should be nice and firm and to the touch, which is unusual because that's not usually how we buy other fruits.
Right.
But we want them soft. So you want them nice and firm to the touch. They should look really nice and plump and kind of pearly. And you'll find them between September and December. So we're right in that sweet spot. You can still pick your fresh ones up. They do last quite a while too. I think I've had a package of remaining kind of in my fridge for the last like 3 weeks, and I can still use them easily.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's one thing to consider. And then when you're cooking them or thinking of how to incorporate them into recipes, we often think of baked goods, right? Muffins or cobblers or different things like that. But also they work really great in savory dishes. So I provided a few recipes for you guys that link directly to our website, but there's a great one where you incorporate into a stuffing for acorn squash. You get a nice sweet and tart at the same time. There's a one where you can create a butter using fresh cranberries that you kind of grind up and mix with orange zest, which is delicious. And one of my favorites is actually the cranberry jalapeno salsa that we have on the website. And so that you get a nice tartness, but also a little heat from the jalapeno. And you can have it as kind of like a side to a meat, like turkey or pork for a chutney, or you can dip it with chips, or I like to do a cracker with like a cream cheese spread and then put that jalapeno salsa on top. That's a great combo.
Yeah, if you couldn't have paid me to tell you that there was a jalapeno salsa out there with a cranberry base. Like that is, but as I'm looking here at some of the images, oh my gosh, it looks really tasty.
Yeah. So
you're going to notice.
Oh, I'm sorry. For some recipes, I was just going to note, you're going to notice that you might just grind them up raw, like with the salsa, you don't cook it, you just grind it up in a food processor. And some of them, like with the stuffing for the acorn squash, you kind of cook it on the stove so they pop and burst. So you're going to notice you use cranberries a little bit differently depending on the recipe.
Yeah, that's interesting. Again, that I would have never, thinking of buying them fresh again, just it doesn't work. I only know it in the can and taking the can, dumping it out on the plate, and there's the canned canned cranberry. Talk quickly on that turkey wrap too. That turkey wrap looks interesting. Is that well, I'll let you take over on that one. What's that one?
So that's a great one to use for leftover turkey, and if you have leftover cranberry sauce. And by the way, homemade cranberry sauce, nothing against the stuff in the can, but homemade cranberry sauce is super easy. So if you want to take a crack at it, it's super easy. It'll make you feel very, holiday-ish when you make it. But those turkey wraps are using leftover turkey, some greens and leftover cranberry sauce, and then a little bit of spread. And then you just roll those up or wrap those up. So those are a great holiday dish to have after the holidays, like for an appetizer, or even to bring in your lunch the next week.
Yeah, that's I'm glad you shared that with one, because that's exactly what
Mhm.
happens, because it gets passed around, but maybe not be everybody's first choice. So trying to figure
Right.
out how to incorporate it into something else. And then quickly, for the snacking of them, and if you're
Mhm.
considering buying that snack, certainly you see the dried cranberries out there,
Mhm.
or a mix of it. But as far as finding and buying those, or even making your own mix, because there's a
Mhm.
lot of people that mix a lot of
Mhm.
and make their own, I don't know what you want to call it, trail mixes and that sort of
Mhm.
thing. You have
Mhm.
any recommendations on that front?
Yeah, so you're going to see them, most, if not all, dried cranberries are going to have sugar in them. Okay. So again, I wouldn't be too scared off by that, because they're still going to be about the same as other dried fruit. The big thing to remember for dried fruit, it's not necessarily higher in sugar, it's just more concentrated because there's no water there, right? So about a quarter cup dried fruit is about equal to a cup total of something fresh, like grapes or berries or things like that. So kind of keep the amount, you wouldn't eat the same amount of dried something as you would fresh. So that's something to keep in mind. The other thing I like to mention is when we're cooking with cranberries and sugar, kind of start at the lower end of what the recipe calls for. Because when you're cooking, you can always add more sugar to it, but you might prefer a little bit more of that tart taste. And so you can't take the sugar out, add it in. Baking, just kind of go with it. It's gonna work out. It's kind of part of the process with baking. But with cooking, take it a little bit at a time, even a third of what the recipe calls for. Add more as you taste it, and you might need it.
Interesting. That's a good tip. Well, Andrea, if people want to learn more about this, where can they find some information on cranberries?
Yeah, so I have the links that go directly to the recipes we're highlighting. Plus, we have our full recipe database on Hy-Vee.com under recipes and ideas. And then the other great resource is our Wisconsin State Cranberry Growers Association. It's kind of a mouthful, but we can include that link as well. They have a lot of information about harvesting and the growing and the industry in our state, as well as some additional recipes as well.
All right, Andrea, thank you so much. I think we've got some good ideas for the holiday season. And hey, folks, if it doesn't work out, put them in a ball in their decoration.
That's right. Stick a candle in there and you're good.
Exactly. That's probably not recommended by the dietitian, but that's my 2 cents. Now, it sounds pretty easy. Andrea, thank you again for the last couple of years. You have been a godsend of the show, and we appreciate all your tips. Good luck to you in the future, and you have an open invitation, no matter where you go, to come back and visit us here on Talking Fitchburg.
Thanks so much.
You bet. To Andrea Miller, Hy-Vee dietitian, and we wish her the best of luck in the future, and we hope to have a continued relationship with Hy-Vee and getting out information dietitian. If not, we're just going to have to hire her, and I'll just put it in my budget for next year. So, all right, we'll take a quick break. More to come. You are watching Talking Fitchburg.
See on page 4 that the projections need to be blood next Thursday.
Seriously? Thursday? Can't do that.
This is really inconvenient.
I have yoga that day.
I have no time for this.
So
I can't do Thursday, but I can do Friday.
Disasters don't plan ahead. You can. Talk to your loved ones about how you're going to be ready in an emergency. Don't wait. Communicate.
If you love them enough to suck the snot out of their nose at 4 a.m., then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Welcome back into Talking Fitchburg, wrapping up the show. I want to thank Andrea Miller from Hy-Vee and Lars Sutherland from DATCP. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you back here tomorrow.